Welcome, you're watching NewsX, a deep dive. I'm Kriti Mehta. A major explosion has rocked one of America's most critical energy hubs, the Valero Port Arthur Refinery. The visuals of the blast are on your screens now. You can see massive plumes of smoke into the Texas sky, and this triggered emergency alerts across the region. The blast occurred late evening on March 23rd, around 7:22 p.m. local time, shaking homes, rattling windows, and leaving residents in fear as fire and thick black smoke rose from the facility. Listen in to this one footage of the explosion extracted from the door camera. People living in and around Port Arthur were immediately told to take shelter. Local authorities issued a shelter-in-place order, urging residents to stay indoors, keep windows and doors closed, and wait for an all-clear as emergency crews rushed to the scene. What we know so far is limited but crucial. Local officials, including Jefferson County Sheriff Zena Stephens, have said there are no reported injuries or fatalities. All workers at the refinery have been accounted for. The company has confirmed that a fire broke out in one of the processing units and that its emergency response teams are working closely with local authorities to contain the situation. The Port Arthur Fire Department has also confirmed the incident, though it says the exact type of event is still unknown. Investigations are now underway to determine the cause of the explosion and the extent of damage to the facility. Let's understand the location of this refinery. The Valero Port Arthur Refinery is located in Port Arthur in Texas along the U.S. Gulf Coast. About 90 miles east of Houston, it sits near major shipping routes, pipelines, and export terminals, making it a key hub for refining crude oil and supplying fuel to both domestic and global markets. And this is not just any industrial site. The Valero Port Arthur Refinery is one of the largest in the United States. It processes about 435,000 barrels of crude oil per day and employs hundreds of workers. It plays a crucial role in turning heavy sour crude oil into essential fuels like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. This makes it a key pillar of the United States energy supply chain, particularly along the Gulf Coast, which is the heart of American refining. Early indications suggest that the explosion may have been caused by an industrial heater. These heaters are a core part of the refining process. They are used to heat crude oil to very high temperatures so that it can be broken down into different components. However, they also operate under extreme conditions. Any failure, whether due to a leak, pressure buildup, or mechanical fault, can quickly turn into a serious incident. There is also an important technical backdrop that adds context to this event. In 2021, the refinery underwent upgrades to its main processing unit, known as the crude distillation unit, or the CDU. This unit is essentially the heart of the refinery. It is where the entire process begins, where crude oil is heated and separated into various products. This is a facility designed to operate at scale under intense conditions, where even a small failure can have large consequences. And then the timing of the explosion has also raised concerns. It comes at a moment when global energy markets are already under pressure due to the ongoing conflict involving Iran and disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz. Any impact on a major refinery like Port Arthur could add to supply uncertainty and push fuel prices higher. Adding to the complexity are claims emerging online. Some of these claims suggest that the explosion may have been an act of sabotage by the IRGC. These assertions come in the context of heightened tensions and warnings from Iran about targeting any energy infrastructure linked to the United States. However, it is important to stress that there is no official evidence at this point to support claims of sabotage. United States authorities have not confirmed any such link, and the investigation remains focused on industrial and technical causes. What we are witnessing is a situation where an industrial incident is intersecting with global geopolitics. On one side, there is a complex refinery system operating under extreme conditions where accidents, though rare, can occur. On the other side, there is a highly charged international environment where every incident is quickly drawn into a larger strategic narrative. For now, the priority is clear: contain the fire, protect the residents, and determine the exact cause of the explosion. Emergency crews remain on the ground, and environmental teams are monitoring air quality to ensure public safety. I'm now joined in this discussion by senior geopolitical and strategic international affairs expert, retired Major General Sudhakar Ji. General, thanks very much for joining me. It's good to see you on screen. Firstly, the Texas refinery explosion has already triggered volatility in global crude prices. From a defense and strategic viewpoint, how vulnerable is America's energy backbone to such incidents, and what does this mean for India's own energy security, especially as we diversify imports away from the Middle East and deepen strategic oil ties with the United States?
Yeah, good evening, Kriti. Thank you for inviting me for your deep dive show. And in your question lie two subheads. One is the vulnerability of this particular refinery, and second is how is it going to impact the global energy security and especially India. So coming to the vulnerability, I hope you got time so that I can, dilate my thought process.
We have about 5 to 7 minutes for the discussion. Please do time your answers accordingly.
Okay, fine. So it has to be understood, like you have very correctly given the geographic location. It also has to be understood that out of, let's say, 10 large refineries in United States of America, 4 belong to this place. And these 4 are major and larger infrastructure or the refineries existing on the soil of USA. Second, these 4 refineries, they produce something to the tune of 87.7% of the total refined product of petroleum on the entire state of United States of America. 87.7% is a very, very high percentage. And third, it also, by virtue of its quality of oil, the refining facility is being undertaken by companies of Saudi Arabia, Aramco company. It's an extension of Aramco company which has been doing its job, a very fine job. And the next point I wish to highlight is these kind of blasts are nothing unusual. And if you go down the line, you can find out 2005 was another incident where similar kind of blast had taken place. And likewise, there may have been many. But under the backdrop of, or in the backdrop of what is happening in Middle East, the Russia-Ukraine war is still in progress. The Hamas and Israeli peace talk, the board of peace is not taking us anywhere forward. And the whole world seems to have got militarized. Keep in mind that in Venezuela, there is a footprint of Hezbollah, IRGC, which has been building up for quite some time. And also Cuba has been reporting of Chinese eavesdropping equipment in number of islands, which is keeping all activities, military and civilian activities, administrative activities of USA under surveillance in the island territory of Cuba. They have got around almost about 4,154 islands, quite a few of them. So there is a total blackout. There is no energy supply, nothing. USA has cut it off from all sides. That's another story. But the story of this particular blast, I have all the reasons to believe that Iran has been pushed to a corner
Okay.
where the IRGC and Hezbollah, in all likelihood, would have infiltrated through Mexico and the Caribbean Sea and into the Texas and give the devil its due. And we should start actually investigating the case from the point of sabotage, not as an accident, because it is from then the security apparatus of USA will perform its task of response matrix by remaining proactive ahead of the loop. Otherwise, they will always be behind the loop. By the time they discover, for all you know, that this was the handiwork of some kind of insurgents or forces inimical, there would be another event taking place very close in the proximity or away from Texas. Back to you,
Okay.
Kriti.
Yeah, in fact, like you said, that brings me to my next question. Defense experts like yourself are globally now debating whether this was a mere accident or a sophisticated sabotage targeting US critical infrastructure. In your assessment, could state or non-state actors be testing America's homeland defenses through energy choke points? And what immediate lessons should India draw to harden our own strategic petroleum reserves and refinery clusters?
Again, 2 points in your question. First and foremost thing, we have to understand and accept the fact that the complete USA, United States of America, is a radicalized society, not polarized. So, in context of polarization, I would say there is a political civil war going on, which Donald Trump would do well to introspect and find a separate solution. But instead of polarized world, I am saying it is a radicalized society. Unfortunately, this is the statement of fact based on lots of reading and research, whether you accept or not. And radicalization doesn't mean that forces inimical to the traditional way of life of America. They have penetrated into the system by physical presence. No, the penetration has taken place by multi-medium platforms, by internet, by social media,
Yes.
by such kind of methods and platforms which you cannot even conceive of. So therefore, it will do well for the American society and administration to guard against such kind of thing. There are a number of examples. Because of paucity of time, I cannot actually dilate into those. But suffice to say that the society as on today is radicalized by different methods. They have to evolve some technique and methodology to guard against it, prevent further expansion. Therefore, they have to have a spectrum, short term, medium term, long term, strategic level, intermediate, and tactical level. And in the short term, they have to go in for something like countering the menace. Thereafter, they come to, firstly is containment, thereafter counter, and thereafter contestation. Contestation is a long term effect and countermeasure which they have to adopt. Back to you, Kriti.
All right, so finally, before I let you go, in the shadow of the ongoing Iran war and Tehran's repeated threats to disrupt global oil flows, could this Texas refinery blast be a calculated proxy response to US pressure in the Gulf, or even a deliberate attempt by Iran to stretch American military resources?
As a military man, Kriti, I would always, put my finger on sabotage and an activity by the proxy, because that is what the Iran has been forced to, and given the presence of Hezbollah in Venezuela and Cuba and in the proximal countries, I suspect that there is a handiwork until unless it is discounted by a process of methodical and scientific investigation. I have purposely avoided your question till now about how is it going to impact India.
Yes.
India's oil kitty has been diversified by a large an extent. We import something to the tune of 87.7% every year. That is the import bill of our oil or the fuel from outside, including the gas. And year on year increase, because the economy is expanding, is 8.86%. Every year it is expanding by this percentage. There is a requirement for domestic effort to actually go in for indigenization of survey and also expand our digging of wells, new wells. For example, like Andaman Nicobar, we need to speed up and also channelize our effort towards this direction. But when it comes to the diversification, we should be mindful of the fact that the amount of oil we are actually importing from Russia has come down from 41% in September 2024 to around 30%, 27% in December 2025. And now I am given to understand by whatever data is available, it is gone up by a couple of percentage, around 33 or 34. And also the Middle East being what it is today, all our options are actually drying out. So therefore, we would do well. Middle East, incidentally, we used to import something close to 40% of the crude oil, 60 to 65% of LNG, and 90 to 95% of cooking gas. Now the situation being what it is, you can well imagine where are the options. Option could be USA. Our percentage has gone up to 7% of late, 7 to 11%. Nigeria is another option. Canada and Australia could be other options which could be considered by Government of India.
All right. General, we'll wind up this discussion at that. Thanks very much for joining us. And viewers, with that, we take a very quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be back with another segment of Deep Dive.